Thing. Awesome. All right, everyone. Thanks so much. It looks like we have quite a few of you trickling in right now. So we are going to get started right away, just in the interest of time. Marie has a bunch of material to share with all of you. She's basically doing a sample of her first lesson. So you are all getting incredible value. Obviously, this is a free event, so we're so grateful for Marie's time and her expertise and what she's sharing with us today. So I'm just going to drop the sign up link for Leland. The reason we are dropping this is because you should sign up so you can stay in touch for or up to date with all of our future events we have, resources. There's a ton going on. And then most importantly, the reason to sign up right now is that Marie is going to be sending an exclusive resource out, and you have to be signed up for Leland to message her and access it. So go ahead and sign up. And then I just also dropped in the chat, once you sign up, her profile, so you can reach out when she gives you the go. With that, we're super excited to have you here. I will run through a quick overview of Leland and MBA week, and just a huge shout out to all of you for being here, and especially Marie for what she's sharing today. Super excited to get started. So we hope each of you have been able to attend a couple of our MBA week sessions. We've had 2 so far. Last night, we had an incredible kickoff with about 400 of you all. We had a standing out as an international applicant this morning, and we still have 12 sessions after this one. So if you haven't already, go ahead and sign up for them. I will drop that link as soon as Marie gets started, so you can sign up for each individual session. We have a lot of content to cover today, so we'll move ahead and we'll make sure you get that link to sign up for the other sessions. I'm sure many of you, if you haven't attended our kickoff or other Leland events in the past, are wondering, who is Leland and why are they hosting an MBA week? So we just wanted to give you a quick overview of who we are and what we're doing before we pass the mic over to Marie to showcase her expertise and bring this incredible GMAT GRE prep sesh to life. Leland is the one-stop shop to help you achieve your most ambitious goals. We have one-on-one coaching, which is definitely, the flagship of what we offer, connecting you with the right individuals who can help you based on your budget, your background, and your goals. We also have small group classes, which are an awesome opportunity to learn from expert coaches and kind of, in a group setting, access the help you need to get one step closer to your goals. And then finally, last night at our kickoff, we announced Leland Plus, which is our content library full of sample essays, application materials, pre-recorded videos, a huge bank of coach discounts, Marie being one of the coaches who has a discount in there, and just a ton of resources to help you get one step closer to your goal. So I'll also send you the link for that. We have a discount going on this week, and we're really excited to share it with you all. And then most importantly, before we pass it over to Marie, just want to say, with everything happening with MBA week, we have all these offerings, but most importantly, we have outcomes and results to show that Leland is genuinely changing the lives of our users, and we're so excited to hear about their wins. Every single one of these folks on this slide is a real person with an incredible story, who's worked incredibly hard to reach these amazing goals and then pay it forward and be incredible leaders in the world. So our whole goal with doing MBA week this week is to make each of you another face on this slide, because we believe in you and we know you have so much to offer to the world and such a bright future. So we are hoping that all of the resources we provide you this week are super helpful to get you here, and we are here to support along the way. With that, we'll pass it over to you, Marie, if you want to do a quick introduction and then dive right into the material you have to share. Thanks for being here.
Okay.
And excited to see your lesson.
Great. Thank you so much, Erica. Okay, guys. So little bit, let me get this started. Hold on, let me switch around here. Okay, so first off, this is, everything you need to know, essentials for GMAT and GRE. And I've hosted 2 of these events, and one of them was a little bit more instruction-based. The other one was a little bit more about what you need to know about the test. And I think that people like the instruction-based more. So the things that I did in the one about, there's basically I made these 2 documents, like everything you need to know before you prep for the GMAT or GRE. And I'm happy to share this document with you and my other one, which is like a course review. It's my ideas on if you decide to do this self study, if you're like, you want to know what courses are best. I give my honest opinions of the pros, cons of all, when you might need tutoring. And, I'm happy to talk to you about this. I know it's sort of like me talking about my competition, but quite honestly, that's okay, because a lot of times people come to me anyway. So if you are interested in this, please just contact me on Leland and tell me you want these sheets, and I will share them with you. And with that, with that said, I'm going to launch into my lesson now. Okay, so this is the lesson that I give everybody, or I'm telling you, this is about 45 minutes to, well, let's see how far we can get, but this is 45 minutes of what I normally do in my first 2-hour lesson, which is pretty intense. I'm going to try to keep it. I'm going to go about 50% as much as I do in the first lesson, because the first one's extremely hard. And usually when I'm working with someone one-on-one, I can answer all their questions. And I noticed when I did it the first time, there were a lot of questions when I did it with the group. Okay, so here we go. This lesson is going to be on integer properties. There is something that an idea that I have made up called number caterpillars, which has to do with the prime factorization of numbers. So if everyone right now, if we could just, like, this is a setup, you can set up your page like that. If you got paper, please start writing. What I would like you guys to do is write the first 10 prime numbers. Okay, prime numbers are those numbers that are indivisible, that they can only be divided by themselves and 1. Okay, now I'm going to just start you off with a little hint here. 1 is not a prime number, and 2 is the first prime number. It is the only even prime number. I always call it the celebrity prime number. So 2 is your first one. Give me 9 more. It'll take about 20 seconds to do that. Okay, and just generally speaking, what I'm going to do, I mean, there are tons of people in this meeting, but just when you guys are done, if you could just comment done, so that I can, basically get an idea of how many people are going, so I can. Okay, great. Got a lot of you. Okay, good. Okay, I see some people writing them in. Okay, so the last one should be 29. Okay, so 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, 17, 19, 23, 29. Okay, so 29 is your 10th one. Okay, now they go on for infinity. And the way that I think of prime numbers, or the way I try to explain them to new people, is I think of them like as elements on the periodic table. Okay, and this idea first, that I'll explain why it's called number caterpillars in a second. But when I first started explaining this so many years ago, I used to think about, like, how like H2O is, an oxygen and 2 hydrogens. Okay, so that's your water molecule. Just like water is a molecule with these 3 different elements in it, a number, every integer is sort of a molecule. And I used to call them number molecules, but I was teaching middle school when this first developed. Kids didn't like molecules, so I changed the idea to caterpillars. So what this is really about is like your prime factorization. And I'm sure you probably are familiar with factor trees. Like when you're doing the number 12, you're doing 2 and 6, 2 and 3. And basically, so that for 12, you would have 2 times 2 times 3. And then when I was teaching this for middle school, I would decorate them like this. And that is why they're called number caterpillars. I'm not going to do this drawing again, this little caterpillar, but this is the visual. And when I teach this in my classes, this is something that is going to, it comes through the entire class, because quite honestly, like integer properties and arithmetic, these are the basis, the foundations of math. To be good at this test, you have to have very, very strong fundamentals. If you're not familiar with this test at all, sometimes I say it's like a middle school test on steroids, because the material, you're not being tested on calculus or trigonometry or even advanced, algebra 2 concepts. You're really being tested on geometry, algebra 1, everything before but in a crazy, crazy hard way. And a lot of this comes into play with this. So here's the caterpillar for 12. The caterpillar for 18 would be 2 times 3 times 3. The caterpillar for 30 would be 2 times 3 times 5. And while this might be a little bit, I don't know, one thing that I make students do, I used to think this was a little silly, but it does pay off, is then I make them, well, here, I'll show you. I'm going to color code them, okay? So all the 2s, I'll make one color. All the 3s, another, and then we'll make the 5 another. And just to show you, so what my students do, let's see, here, I have some that students have done, like, this was mine. And then I had a student who, hers is right here. She did it on an iPad, but it really helps me explain, like up here, what I'm trying to do is show something about 16 factorial. And I'm showing like 16 factorial, meaning, am I able to do this? 16 factorial, if you guys remember what this means, it's like 16 times 15 times 14, all the way down to 1. And there's, there are some of the most sophisticated problems will like have you figure out how many 2s are in something like 1,000 factorial. And I'm showing things like that. It also comes up with other problems. I'm going to show you that today. Okay, so basically, let's just go over some basic vocabulary. Factors of 12. When you talk about and what this is all going to show you right now is I'm going to show you some basic stuff about getting greatest common factor and lowest common multiple with numbers like this. So factors of 12, to remind you what this word means. Factors are finite. I start off with like a little alliteration here. Factors are finite and factors fit inside. So when I ask for factors of 12, and one way you should always write them like called the outside inside method, like 1 and 12, 2 times 6, 3 and 4, because there's no number between 3 and 4. This is how you know you got all 6 of them, okay? Multiples of 12s, multiples are infinite. They go on for infinity. They don't fit inside. I sometimes would say more, M for more. This is when I was teaching SAT. So the multiples of 12, 12 times 1, 12 times 2, 12 times 3, 12 times 4. And then this is going to go on for infinity, okay? Now, multiples of 12, I just want to illustrate something. The reason I did so many is a multiple of 12, like the caterpillar. Well, here's a caterpillar for 12 right here. The caterpillar for 24 would be 2 times 2 times 3 times 2. You don't have to put them in order. This 36 would be 2 times 2 times 3 times 3. 48 is 2 times 2 times 3 times 2 times 2. And what I'm just trying to illustrate is that every multiple of 12 has to have all the pieces of 12 in it. Well, that might seem super obvious. You'll understand in a couple minutes why I keep having to emphasize that. Okay, so here are my caterpillars for 12, 18, and 30. And what we're going to talk about right now is finding the greatest common factor and the lowest common multiple. Okay, so GCF, greatest common factor. If you don't know what that stands for, please write that out. This is the lowest common multiple. The greatest common factor, and I'm starting with these numbers, 4, 8, and 48. I just want to do a quick example with something much easier. The greatest common factor of these three numbers has to push this way. It is the biggest number that fits into all three. So 4, okay? And I'm trying to illustrate that the greatest common factor cannot be bigger than the smallest number. The lowest common multiple is the number that pushes that way. This is the smallest number that all three fit into, which in this case is 48. The lowest common multiple cannot be smaller than the greatest of the three numbers. And so, yeah, they're pushing, they're opposite concepts, greatest common factor, lowest common multiple. They're pushing from opposite directions. I say this because every once in a while, someone will say the lowest common factor. There's no such thing. The lowest or the least common factor of any three numbers is just 1, or any group of numbers. And that you can't ever find a greatest common multiple either, because that's going to go into, it's just infinity, just, can go forever. So first, understanding this idea. Okay, now if I were to find and want to use three numbers that were relatively easy to, process 12, 18, and 30. If you're trying to find the greatest common factor of them, okay, what you do, so the greatest common factor of 12, 18, and 30, what you do is you look for what they have in common. So I see that they all have a 2. I'm going to put a 2. I'm basically starting a new caterpillar chain. And they all have a single 3. Okay. So, and that's all that they all have in common. They all have 1, 2, and they all have 1, 3. Now, if they all had 2 3s, I would put an extra 3 here. I say that like you can repeat the same prime number, but the greatest common factor of 2, 18, and 30 is 6. Okay. And if you're like, I knew that without doing this, totally understandable. I'm going to talk about when you need to do it with much bigger numbers, and we're going to see a problem like that soon enough. Okay, if you had to do the lowest common multiple of 12, 18, and 30, let me remind you what we are trying to do is we are trying to find, or I should say create, a number that all of these fit into. Remember over here when I was saying that multiples of 12, any multiple of 12 has to have the pieces that make 12. So a multiple, or the lowest common multiple of these numbers, has to have all the pieces that make 12, 18, and 30. Sometimes I call this the mama caterpillar. And I'm like, the mama caterpillar, she's got to hold all of her kids or whatever. She just has, I'm like, then it's a kangaroo. She's putting them in her papoose, but whatever. She wants to hold all of them, but she doesn't want to hold any extra weight. Okay. So to become a multiple, and imagine, I obviously know how many bubbles there are, but just pretend you don't. I mean, you can erase them, you can put extra, doesn't matter. But what you're looking at is you're saying, let's just start with the 12. To be a multiple of 12, as I've illustrated here, you'd have to have a 2, a 2, and a 3. So the lowest common multiple has those pieces, 12 is done, okay? For this mama caterpillar to be able to, hold up her 18 child or whatever, to have the 18, she has to have a 2, a 3, and a 1, 2, and 2 3s. She already has 1 2. She already has 2 2s. So the 2 is covered. She has 1 3. So 1 3 is covered. So now we just add 1 3. We take okay. So right now that we have the lowest common multiple of 12 and 18, both of these are satisfied. And if you let's take a moment to reflect, the number that I've created, 2 times 2 is 4, 3 times 3 is 9, 36. So far, the number is 36. That is the lowest common multiple of 12 and 18, but it is not a multiple of 30. And that's because 30 requires 1 2. I have it. 1 3. I have it, but it also requires a 5. Okay. Now we multiply this together. And when I multiply a chain of numbers, I do look for 2s and 5s because we work in a base 10 system. So I know that that's 10. I'm going to multiply the remaining 3, which are 18. And now that tells me that the lowest common multiple of 12, 18, and 30 is 180. Okay. So what I would like to do is I want to do this with the 3 harder numbers, just give you guys a chance to try it before we move on. Okay. Here we go. So the numbers are 96, 72, and 60. And you're finding the greatest common factor, which is the easier one, in my opinion, and the lowest common multiple, the greatest common factor of these 3 numbers and the lowest common multiple. So if you feel like you don't know anything to do, then I'm going to ask you to just do the prime factorization. Factor trees for all 3. Line up the factors. Take a guess, but then you'll at least be ready to pay attention to it. And, I'm so pressed for time that I got a little, I'm just going to I'm supposed to do a little intro to tell you guys. So while you guys work on this, let me just tell you, how I got into this. I started off college as a math major. That's sort of my true thing, but I ended up as an English major. So I got my degree in English literature from Georgetown. I graduated, went to law school for a year. I'm always was into tests. I used to teach the LSAT too. And then after that, I decided law school wasn't for me. I became a math teacher, but even before I did that, I always taught SAT. I started teaching SAT. SAT and LSAT were the first 2 I taught for Kaplan. about 20 years ago. And I started that. Then I worked for Kaplan full time as a salesperson. And while there, I had to take the GRE to, I applied to grad school. I went to Columbia University or Teachers College at Columbia, and I got my master's in math education. I was a high school math teacher for many years, but for the last 7, I've been doing this full time. So I teach primarily GMAT and GRE, still do ACT and SAT. The LSAT I broke up with. I'm not a big fan of the LSAT because it doesn't have any math, and I do like math the most. Anyway, I teach both subjects, but I always like to do a demo lesson in math because it's a little bit more, there's more bells and whistles, and it's a little bit more, it's fun. So, okay. Okay, let me look at comments, see how we're doing here. Okay, Priya, I just saw your comment. Yeah, a lot of people who are taking this test are, a couple years out of school. So one of the things that we do is we start off with foundational stuff. And usually even before this lesson, I give people a text to sort of review the concept of factors, multiples, prime numbers, how to add and subtract fractions. Getting like the rust off is, it's what it, usually I tell people like the most important thing to me is how fast you are with your multiplication tables. Being able to multiply and divide very quickly is important. And I have a lot of apps that I give my students so that they, I found certain apps that are a little bit more appropriate for older people learning this rather than, not just like times tables for 3rd and 4th graders. But yeah, everyone kind of comes to it at a different level, which is why private tutoring can be kind of the quickest and most efficient way to get through things. Okay. Okay. I'm going to just start at least doing the caterpillars for these. So 96 should be 2 times, there's 5 2s and a 3. 72, 3 2s, 2 3s, and 60 is 2 2s, a 3, and a 5.
Maria, I have a quick question.
Sure, go ahead.
The thought process there, like when I first thought of 96, I think of 24 and 4. Is that the thought process? Then you do that first, like that intermediary step, and then you do, obviously there's how many ever 2s in 24.
Yeah, that's what you, I think that's almost, most people are going to just divide by 2. I always go, like 6 and 16 or something like that. But whatever you need to do. See, like when I'm doing them on the fly, if I were doing 6 and 16, I'm going to go 6 and 16 and 6, and then I know 16. But see, this is a little like, I know them all by heart. And the reason I make students do these things is like, I'm like, you need to make friends with all the numbers under 100. You need to know them inside out. So like, I know 16. When I always use 16 as an example, like I don't think of 16 as a 1 next to a 6. I think of it as 4 2s. I do this to my friends all the time. When someone was like, my favorite number is 1111, I'm like, I'll do the prime factorization of everything. I think of numbers as what their prime factors are and how they're related. So yeah, but any way you can do it. Students are always like, you do it so fast. I'm like, well, this is something that like I have been personally doing. I don't know, since like high school. This is a way that I did, and it does. And I am fast, but so my students get fast too. You get fast pretty much within a couple of weeks of doing this. But that's why I make everyone do this color-coded thing, which might seem silly until you all of a sudden realize how smart it makes you and what it's used for.
Yeah,
All right, let me start talking about this.
Sense. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. You guys, please jump in if you'd like. I love private tutoring because I like the feedback of people going, I don't get it and all that stuff. There's like 100 of you guys, so maybe that might be a little bit difficult, but it's sometimes a little weird when I'm talking into like a void. Okay, so here we go. Greatest common factor. What I'm looking for is I see that there are 2 2s in all of these, and a max of 2 2s. Okay, I can't squeeze any more 2s out of the 60. I see a 3 in all of them. Okay, and that's the most 3s I'm getting out because I'm not getting any more 3s from 96 or 60. So the greatest common factor is 2 times 2 times 3, or 12. Okay, lowest common multiple. Okay, now there's like Target Test Prep, which is a great company, and you'll see when you get my sheet. It's my favorite one because it's great. The con is that it takes like 2 years to learn everything that they're going to give you. So I go through the whole course a lot faster. But they have a different way of doing this. They tell people, like they tell them to put it in so I'm just going to show it to you. So this is 2 to the 5th, 3 to the 1st. This is 2 to the 3rd, 3 squared. This is 2 squared, 3 to the 1st, 5 to the 1st. Sort of what they tell you is just look for like whichever number has the most 2s, that's how many 2s you need. Whichever number has the most 3s, that's how many 3s you're going to need. Whichever number has the most 5s, that's how many 5s you're going to need. Because if you're thinking about it like the mama caterpillar, now if I do this, if I put 5 2s in, and then 2 3s, and I'll stick that 5 over here. Okay, now you can see that, look at the 96. The 96 is covered because here's 96. Okay, I know 96 fits into this number. 72, I need the 2 3s and 3 2s, 72's in this number. And 60 needs the 5, 2 2s, and a 3. I'm using things over. That's the whole point. You want to use things over so that you're getting the lowest common multiple. And the lowest common multiple here, this is 10. This right here is 16, and this is 9. 16 times 9, 9 times 10 is 90, 9 times 6 is 54. So it's 144, stick the 10 on. So if you got 1440, that is the correct answer. That is the smallest number. 1440 is the smallest number that all 3 of these fit into. Okay, so I'm going to show you just a little bit more about how factoring works. So like just a way to factor numbers, and then I'm going to give you a very difficult problem that I'm sure will be, I just want to show you kind of what you would see on the GMAT or the GRE. Okay, so if let's say you need to find all the factors of 180. Okay, this wouldn't really be a problem per se, but you might need to know this to get into a problem. So I tell people whenever they see the words, factors or divisors, which means the same thing. Factors, divisors, if you see multiples, sometimes like product of integers or product of primes. These words and some others tell me that I'm using number caterpillars. Okay, what that means is you better be there's going to be some number in this problem that you're going to do the prime factorization of. So right here, find all the factors of 180. I'm going to do the prime factorization of this. Okay, 18 times 10. Okay, I didn't put it in order, but this is the number we saw when I had the last page. Okay, so 180, this outside inside method. Okay, 180. I'm going to start with the easiest. 2, 90, 3, 60. And right here is when I go, does 4 go into 180? You guys all can think about it for a second. Does 4 go into 180? The answer is yes. And I think what a lot of people do is they do division. They think, I don't know, because I don't do that. Okay. What I look for is the way that I know that 4 goes into 180 is I'm looking at the caterpillar. Okay. And the caterpillar, I see that 4, I know that 4 is 2 times 2. Okay. And if I haven't said it already, caterpillar is all prime factorization. There's no non-prime numbers on this. I even tell my students, I had a student submit one today to me. I don't want the numbers to start at 1. I don't want 1 on this chart anywhere. Okay. 1 is not a prime number. That doesn't count. 1 is like the null set of prime numbers, but that's a different story. And I look at, so I know that 4 is 2 times 2, and I see that there is a 2 and 2 2s in this 180. So I know that 4 goes into 180. And how many times does 4 go 180? I'm not going to do division. I'm going to hold the 2 2s, and I'm going to multiply the other 3 components. 3 times 3 times 5, 9 times 5 gives me 45. So that's how many times 4 goes into 45. Okay, so 2, 3, 3. I'm just erasing this again so I can have it clean. 5 goes into 180, cross the 5 out, multiply the other 4 pieces. That's going to give you 6 times 6, 36. Okay, 6 goes into, let me write this again, 2, 3, 3, 2, 5. 6 goes into it 30 times. Then I ask 7, does 7 go into it? And the answer to that is no, it does not, because of that whole idea of the prime number and the color coding and all that. When I look at it like this, okay, so in my colors, 2s are this color, and however I decide to do this, the idea is that whatever color I pick for 7 is just a brand new color. It's a brand new color in this thing. So back to this thing, when people are color coding them, this wasn't clear the first time, all the 2s are the same color, all the 3s are the same color, all the 5s, and you start noticing certain things like, well, the 2 is going to be the color you see the most often, because it's the smallest prime number. The 3 is the color that you see the second most often. The 5 is the color that you see the third. 7, through every prime number. That's really what's going on. So, but my point is that 7 is a brand new element, a brand new color that's not in this chain, and that's why 7's not in there. And you could just say none of these numbers multiply to be 7, but that's also kind of the same idea because it's not prime. 8 is not in here because 8 is 2 times 2 times 2, and the correct, if I said like, why does 2 not go into 180? I'm sorry, why does 8 not go into 180? The reason would be because an 8 requires 3 2s, not 4 2s, 3 2s, because I'm always talking about the prime factorization. I'm not talking about 2 times 4 like that. Okay, so 7 doesn't go, 8 doesn't go, 9 goes into it, 9 goes into 18 2 times, it's going to go in 20 times, 10 goes into it 18 times. 11 is a prime number, not seen in this chain. That's how I know 11 doesn't go in. 12 is 2 times 2 times 3. This is how I think we got 180 in the first place. So 12 times 15. And look here, like the only numbers between 12 and 15 are 13, which is prime, so it's not here. 14, which requires a 7, not here. And we've closed the gap, and now we have this is like a complete list of all factors. There are 18 here. And I'm just trying to show you this like methodical way to get through all of them. So you're not just taking stabs in the dark and randomly guessing and doing all this crazy division, because that's just very inefficient. After there's like, in my first lesson, I also teach this like really, this is too hard for me to do in this demo thing, but I teach you how to figure out how many factors in a number. So like taking the number, say 18 million, and figuring out how many unique factors. Like in this number, there are 18. You could write them all out and count it. But in something like 18 million, there's like a trick, and I show it usually with 180, so you could see, oh yeah, when you wrote it out, it was 18, and then the trick, it's 18. That's like another thing that I don't want to get into because it's pretty high level and just takes too long, and there would be a lot of individual questions. But I'm just showing there's like other things that this goes with. Okay, so then I think I want to just show you some problems where this. Oh, by the way, I think I was talking to you before about these sheets that I wanted to share, and these are what they. Oh, I think I already did show this. Okay, my bad. Let me go to this problem. Okay, that I want you guys to see. I got this off of GMAT Club. I do sometimes use, I don't know if you guys are familiar, but GMAT Club is a great resource. The pros and cons are, first, that it's got everything, and that's the pro. It's got every single question, probably anything you can think of that you'd struggle with if you go there. And it has the problems well organized into like 26 different categories, which I really like, so that you could just do just mixture problems or just, rate times time distance problems. I like that. The cons are that sometimes people write insane problems for fun and go here and put them on there, and you don't even realize that you're not doing a problem. So you want to make sure that you're looking, and like it says resources. It will show you like that the resources that maybe was written by official guide, or if it's written by anyone, Target Test Prep, Kaplan, pretty much anything that has a name, I would take that. But sometimes when it says source, other please specify, that might be that someone's just trying to like nerd it up, some insane problem, because a lot of people like doing that. You know, like, I guess I get it, but you know, sometimes I see problems and I'm like, this is not written correctly. Okay, but anyway, I would like you guys to attempt this in very hard problem, and I'll show you how what I just taught you relates to this. Wait another minute. There's a question. I'm just going to answer some of the things I'm seeing in the chat. Somebody said, how do you contact me? Go to Leland. First, you have to be registered, I believe. Go to Leland. When you see me on Leland, you can start a conversation with me there. And usually, I think there's even like a sort of like a little sample thing that you can send me that's like an auto thing. And I tell you basically to make an appointment on my Calendly. We usually meet for 15 minutes and just discuss your personal situation beforehand. And I give you different options, different advice on when you should start. If you guys, I'm going to just say this stuff generally. If you're looking for round one help, start immediately. I've been working with round one people since February and March, some January. A lot of times people start now and they're realizing they're not going to get the score that they want, and they push it off to round two. This is really, I am starting with round two people already, or I have one student who's round two. But when she told me that, I was like, okay, that's awesome, because it's realistic. I mean, quite honestly, we need some time. I don't want to crush anyone's dreams or anything like that. I have had crazy success. My last crazy cram story was a success story. It was someone who had 11 days and went from a 620 to a 700, and she got into her deferred Columbia. That's where she wanted to go. So that worked out nicely, but I don't recommend it. Okay. It was, my stomach's in knots, and we had to meet like every single day for, I don't know, 5 days. It was a lot. Okay, let's go into this problem. So it says the highest common factor of X and 15 is 3. So that tells me, this is what I know about X. Okay. X, I'm going to make some bubbly thing for X, and then 15 I know is 3 and 5. So when you tell me that the highest common factor of X and 15 is 3, then I know for sure that X has a 3 in it. But what I also know is that X does not have a 5. Okay, I'll write it like this. Okay, the highest common factor of X and 140. So 140 is 14 times 10. Someone was asking how long it takes to get good at this. Getting good at your multiplication tables and division, and that's why I give you drills, sort of like there's certain drills that I have that are matching drills that you're working on your time, because everything is, all these little seconds that take you to break down a fraction are going to be the thing that hurts you. And a lot of what I teach is try to how to clean up your arithmetic, how to do long division faster, how to multiply two digit number like in your head, all this stuff so that you see it. That is something I'm always thinking about, but everyone's a little bit different. So I don't really care if you do a factor tree and you turn it into this. It's not a big deal. Okay, let me look at this one. So the highest common factor of X and 140 is 14. So that means that X must have a 2 and it must have a 7 in it. It also tells me that X cannot have another 2 in it. And the reason it can't have another 2 is because if it did, then we would say the highest common factor of X and 140 is 28. Okay, because that, they both have 2 2s and a 7. But since they said 14, I know that it has, so I'm just going to write like 1, 2 maximum. Okay, that's another thing. I know there's no 5s, there's 1, 2 maximum. Okay, and then it says which may be the following. So I don't really need this anymore. I'm just going to cross this off. It says which could be the highest common factor of X and 660. 660 is 66. Here, I'll do it like the 66 times 10. 66, 6 and 11, 2 and 3. So 66 is 2 times 3 times 11 times 2 times 5. Okay, 2. This up here, 2, 3, 11, 2, and 5. Okay, the question is, which of the following could be the greatest common factor of X and 660? Okay, so the greatest common factor has to have a 2 in it, has to have a 3, because that's what these have in common. Okay, and I know that for sure. So just the first, I do remember doing this the first time, and I missed something I said, but I'll explain my logic. I knew this, I knew that it had, so by the way, it says which of the following may be the highest common factor, not necessarily, because quite honestly, 6 could be the highest common factor, but 6 isn't there. However, I do know that the greatest common factor has to at least have 6 in it. So 22 is not going to work because that has no 3 in it. 30 looks good. 33 doesn't work because that doesn't have a 2 in it. 44 doesn't have a 3 in it. 66. So now I'm between B and E. But B is 2 times 3 times 5, and 66 is 2 times 3 times 11. And back when we learned that X and 15 was 3, that's when we learned that there could be no 5 in X. So that's how we know that the answer cannot be B, but it could be E. For all we know, there could be an 11 here, and we could common up the 11 to make it 66. That's basically, there's only 2 possible answers to this question. The only answers would be 6 or 66, but there you go. It's a pretty tricky problem. I have other ones like this. I usually do a couple of these to get this completely understood. But I think that I don't know. Here's another. I don't know if I want to do this one. I'm going to talk to you. Let me just go through something maybe a little bit simpler. I'll see if I can get to my next major problem. Okay, so usually my first lesson, I will go through the rules of divisibility. I'm going to go through these kind of quickly though. Okay, so starting off with, so you understand at least what I'm talking about, this is a very helpful thing. First of all, this is very helpful for making that number caterpillar chart. But there are tricks to figure out if like, that a number is divisible by 2 if the number is even, right? And a number is divisible by 5 if the number ends in 0 or 5, okay? And if a number is divisible by 10, that should be, if a number is divisible by 10, I'm just skipping right past that. Okay, 3. The 3 trick, the 9 trick. Okay, so the 3 trick is, in my opinion, the most important. When I'm not teaching test prep, when I was a high school teacher, this still was something I had to teach students because I just cannot stand when they give me fractions that are not simplified. And sometimes they see a number like 51 over 6 and they think this is a prime number and it's simplified. But I'm going to show you how to see that it isn't. So the trick for 6 is that the sum of the digits is a multiple of 3. Okay, so when I look at 51, 51 is, I see 5 plus 1. 5 plus 1 is 6. Since 6 is a multiple of 3, I know 51 is also a multiple of 3. Then if I do long division on this is another way that I teach this, but 3 goes into 51 at least 10 times with 21 left over. 3 goes into 21 7 times. So 51 is not a prime number, it is 3 times 17. Okay, and that problem that I was talking about, 51 over 6, 3 times 17, 3 times 2. So yeah, that's the correct answer, 17 over 2. And that's why I teach it, because I don't want to see 51 over 6 on a test I want my numbers simplified, and sometimes students don't totally pick up on that. The 9 trick is less important, but it's important for these tests, and there's reasons why. One will be coming up soon. So the 9 trick is the exact same thing as the 3 trick because it's related. I mean, the caterpillar for 9 is 3 times 3. So it's the sum of the digits is a multiple of 9. Same thing. Okay, so 51 adds up to 6, not a multiple of 9. But take a number like 27, 2 plus 7 is 9, and you know that 27 is a multiple of 9. And it works if, you know, the number is huge as well. I also have one where I ask, what is the remainder when, hold on, I forgot to have this one up. What is the remainder when 237,941,386 is divided by 9? Okay, so this question could be answered using this trick. And one thing that students like to do is they just add up all the digits. I'm going to show you what I do. Okay, so I'm going to knock them off 9 at a time. Here's the 9. 2 plus 7 is a 9. 3 plus 6 is a 9. 8 plus 1 is a 9. And I'm left with a 4 and a 3. So when this number is divided by 9, the remainder is 7. Okay, and I know that's a little weird, but I promise you it's true. If I subtracted 9 from this number, 2, 3, 7, 9, 4, 1, 379, and I added up all these digits, I promise you it is a perfect multiple of 9. Okay, so when this number, when you divide by 9, would have a remainder of 0. I know it's a little weird that the 3 and the 4 aren't, say, in the units place, but I could have done it that way if I wanted to. Anyway, that's a trick for remainders. Okay, the next one I'm going to teach you, the 4 rule and the 6 rule. I'm going to stop there. The 4 trick is that the last 2 digits are, okay, I'm going to make this grammatically correct, but the last 2 digits form a 2-digit number that is divisible by 4. Okay, please don't confuse this at all with the 3 and the 9 trick. You're not adding digits together like you do with the 3 and the 9. So let me demonstrate. Let's say you have the number 2,732. To figure out if 4 goes into this number, you look at just 32. 4 goes into 32, right? 8 times. So that 4 goes into this whole number. This one I could explain. Like I always call this one, I just say this is magic. I'm not going to give you the proof of why this works. The 4 trick, I can explain why this works. See, 4 goes into 100 perfectly, right? 100 divided by 4 is 25. So 4 goes into 100. 4 goes into any multiple of 100. So I can take this number and deconstruct it into 2,700 plus 32. And I know 4 goes into this part. So I really just got to look at the remainder, the leftovers, and say just 4 go into the leftovers. That's why you only look at the last 2 digits. Okay. Now, some people have said to me, like, I'll say, what's the 4 trick? And they go, I'll just do 2 twice. That's not practical, because if you have to take this number, take half of it, and then go, oh, that's even. It's a little stickier than you think it is. Okay. You'll see that soon. And then the final trick I want to teach you is 6, but 6 is, I always like to do it in a different color because it's really not a new trick. Okay. 6, if you think about the caterpillar for 6, it's 2 times 3. So just like when I showed you in that hard problem, when you're saying, is a number divisible by 6, what you're really saying is that number, like if I could visualize the entire caterpillar chain, does it have at least a 2 in it and have a 3 in it? Okay. So to figure out if 6 isn't a number, you have to do, the trick for 2. See that the number's even. And then you're going to do the trick for 3. Okay. You're going to add up all the digits and see that the digits are a multiple of 3. Don't change it. It's not now a multiple of 6. It's a multiple of 3. Okay, so a number is something like 1002. Okay, these little ones are weird looking and people always get them wrong. That's why I like to do them. But look at 1002. It's definitely even. 1 plus 0 plus 0 plus 2 is 3. So 3 goes into it. That's how I know 6 goes into it. Okay, if I were doing long division for it, this is how I do it. I'd go 6 goes into 600. Goes in 100 times. 402. This is like a new way of doing long division that it was intuitive to me. I always make this thing that I used to say. I used to teach 98% of my students long division. I've moved that up to 100% because no one does it fast enough. But 6 goes into 360 60 times, and then what's left over? 42. 6 is going to go into 42 7 times. So now I know that 1002 is 6 times 167. And then break this down, and I will go, later on I will talk about tricks for 167, which I'm pretty sure is a prime number. Just staring at it right now, so I'm pretty sure I'm going to put a circle in that. If I'm wrong, I apologize, but I'm on the spot right here. Okay, so these are these tricks. I'm going to give one final question, and then I'm going to probably wrap this up. So this is another GMAT question. GMAT, GRE, these are both kind of interchangeable for this test. Okay, the question is, which of the following is divisible by 36? Now, straight up, I'm going to give you a hint. You see the word divisible? It's number caterpillars for sure. Okay, so first number is 5,232. Second is 5,742, 5,244, 5,436, 5,130 is your final number. Okay. Which of the following is divisible by 36? Don't do long division, please, because that's going to take forever. But it's based off of those tricks that I just taught you. You're gonna have to figure out which tricks are gonna work, and possibly almost everyone usually goes for one of those tricks first and then realizes there's a dead end. So you might have to think about what other tricks would work too. Oh, there's a question about the new GMAT. I did want to bring that up. There's new GMAT and new GRE are coming out. And the new GMAT and new GRE are coming out. The new GMAT is going to be next year. The new GRE, I'm not even sure, but probably since I just heard about it a little bit further down the road. For the most part, I don't know if whenever there's a new test, there's always some like uncertainty about what it's going to look like. And so that's sort of, I would encourage someone to do it before the changes, because if you're going to do it, and you don't want to be like one of the first people with the new test, but probably not the worst either. GRE starts in September. I did not realize that. Okay, gosh, I better get on that. Well, the new GRE isn't crazy different. It's just making things shorter. So I don't think that's too much. I think the GMAT is trying to be a little bit more GRE based, because the GRE is gaining a lot of popularity, and that's really why tests change. Like when one becomes more popular, as the GRE has become like a popular option for people who don't want to take the GMAT decides that they want to be more like the GRE. The differences in GMAT and GRE, I just tell people roughly like take a practice test on each and figure out which one you're more comfortable with. But generally speaking, everyone is always going to be more comfortable with the GRE, because the GMAT has these weird problems on them, meaning the data sufficiency that everybody hates. So you just have to decide, are you going to be someone who's going to like try to overcome that, and at least, if you prep to death and you prep a lot, obviously you can overcome it. And then there's that issue of like, now you have this advantage over people who, didn't prepare adequately. It's not like a very simple decision, like one's easier than the other. I think that the GRE is a lot of vocabulary, and I have students who will prep I mean, I have a student right now who's an amazing vocabulary and took it upon herself, and she learned an extra 1,000 words and then did an extra thing, and she's got some Quizlet things, and now I use even with other students, and there are always going to be words that she's still learning. So sometimes you feel like you max out. But I don't know, I'm sort of getting vague, because the truth is I have a vague answer for which one's better. Just take the test, decide which one you're more comfortable with. I think that you could pretty much always probably start studying for GMAT, or either one really. GMAT, I like to train people not to use their calculators. That's pretty much my main thing. I think that some people think the GRE is easier because you get to use a calculator. You definitely have to get rid of that idea. You're not going to use you don't want to use a calculator ever. It's going to slow you down. And someone was asking me how long should these questions take? The answer is, I mean, I know that they're supposed to take about 2 minutes, but they're not going to, when I'm working with students, I give a lot more time, but this is a short session. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. I have to get rid of my dog. Okay. So, studying timeline, these questions, I have all of this in those documents. I have a document that says which test, like what do which test you should pick, how much time you should study. I always say to people, roughly, I'm going to say 3 to 5 months. You should put in, and you should tell yourself that you're going to, 2 hours a day, every single day. I like to do, my ideal is to meet someone twice a week, 4 hours of tutoring. I expect them to be working every other day for at least 2 hours. 1 day a week, they're taking a practice test. That's pretty much what good prep looks like to me. But again, all that stuff's going to be on the sheets. So, okay, here, which of the following is divisible by 36? Anyone have any answers for this? You want to throw them in there? Tell me what you think. I just want to see if anyone has any. Okay, cool. I am seeing some correct answers. Okay, wonderful. Okay, so this is, when I saw this problem for the first time, you think, when I see this word, I always know it's going to have something to do with caterpillars. And if you could visualize the prime factorization of all 5 of these numbers, what you're looking for is, like, you want to see, does that string of circles, does it contain enough to contain 36? 36 is the thing that you're good caterpillar. 36 is 2 2s and 2 3s. And I need to know, like, that's what I'm looking for. Is this number going to have 2 2s and 2 3s in it? And I think what a lot of people do is they try the 6 trick first, and then they realize that every single one of these numbers is even. And when they add up all the digits, this comes out to 12. This comes out to, what did I do here? 12 plus 6, 18. This one's 15, this one's 18, and this one's 9. And then they realize that 3 goes into every single one of these numbers. So 6 goes into every single one of these numbers, but I didn't ask which of the following is divisible by 6. That's 36. So that 6 trick isn't going to work. But then I usually ask people when we get stuck here, like, why did you pick 6? And people are like, well, because 6 goes into 36. So you got to think about other things that go into 36. So the correct way to do this would be to think of the other tricks I taught you. 2, 3, what do we went to 2, 3, 5, 6, and I gave you 9. Okay. And we did the 6 trick, which means we use the 2 and the 3. We wouldn't use the 5. So really we have to use the 4 trick. I'd start with the 4 trick. 4 goes into 32, I'll keep it. 4 does not go into 42. This number's out. 4 goes into 44, I'll keep it. 4 goes into 36, I'll keep it. 4 does not go into 30. This number's out. 9. Okay. 12 is not divisible by 9. This number's out. 15 is not divisible by 9. So the answer is 18. If you caterpillared all these numbers, like this number will have 2 2s in it and it will have 1 3, but it's not going to have that second 3. That's why it won't be divisible by 36. So, okay, I got through, one of the major questions. I usually have about 4 defining questions my first, but this, again, it's a little harder when you're dealing with the whole group of people. And I would love to talk about this more. I'm not sure. I don't want to keep anyone late in case anyone has other commitments. I'm going to talk a little bit about tutoring, just what I do. Okay, someone said, why did I pick the numbers 2, 3, 5, 6, 9? I didn't pick them, but I'm just saying that these are all the ones that I have rules for. And I'm just showing you which ones I would have gone through. And again, I apologize, and this is definitely rushed. I think I just want to show you like how hard it can get, what it looks like. If it's overwhelming, you know, welcome to getting ready for the GMAT or the GRE. Let me show you a little bit about files I keep and what tutoring looks like to me. Okay, I'm going to pick someone who this is like a very thorough one. Okay, so first to take an intake. I don't put last names because I don't want people to, you know, get through, you know, I don't want anyone's private information, but this is the trackers that I keep. Okay, so this is these are all the topics that I have to get through just for math. Okay, and it's basically 18 hours. I kind of have, and by the way, I put this I put this in those sheets that I'm going to share with you if you're interested in. Like sometimes one of the misconceptions I hear, someone's like, I just need to learn some strategies. And I'm like, it doesn't really work like that, because I have to teach you all these subjects, and each one of these has strategies. And you know, the thing I even sent you guys looks like this. I think I copied and pasted this purple list, and it's not going to make sense to, you know, every math teacher. Like my wedding party analogy is something I made. Functions as a machine is something I made up. So whatever, this is just what I'm showing you. And this is basically like the green is, oh, this is verbal, but this is verbal for GRE, which is less. And then I had, like with this student, I had her go through all these lists and I kept her accountable. She has target test prep. So these are things that, I mean, I have a lot of worksheets as well, but this is another thing I want to show, how many tests it really takes to go up. Okay. Sometimes I have students who are so frustrated because they've done maybe 4 or 5 tests and they're not seeing a lot of improvement. That's normal. Sometimes I say a student 10 minimum, but it's really like 15 to 20. I have another one here that I like to show. Okay. This student, here's her first test with, you know, she had a little prep before this one. She knew what she was doing. She gets a 640. Here's her 5th test. She resets them. Now this is her highest one, a 730. But on her 12th test, she got a 650. It's really easy to go back to normal if you're tired or things like that. She reset them again. Now I think she took a total of 19 tests. Okay. When she walked into and by the way, she was like, Marie, I'm taking the same test over. Like there's a certain point where you are kind of taking the same ones, but they adjust. So quite honestly, sometimes you start memorizing the wrong answers. Anyway, she walked in, she got a 720. She took it once. She got into her school. That was it. She was done. That's to me, it's like a super great success story, because taking it once is always great. And I should also talk a little bit about that. People ask how often can you take it. GMAT, I know you can take 5 times in the calendar year. If you take a test in center, you have to wait 16 days to take it in center again. But one way you can like sort of like, if you're in a rush, I had a student who took it in the center one day, then he took it at home the very next day. The clock restarts like that. It's a little complicated. You can only take it at home twice maximum in your whole entire life. But if you were like, I'm trying to take it 3 times in, you know, a 3-week period, it is possible. Take it in the center, take it home, then take it in the center 16 days after the first center one. And GRE has pretty similar rules. I'm not GRE. I have, you know, it used to be that it was only about 5% of my students take GRE. Now it feels like a little bit more like 40. But it's pretty similar with that. You have to space them out. And the at home stuff I'm not as sure about, because I don't know how many students I've ever had who wanted to take it at home. They like taking in the center instead. But I don't know if there's anything else that I really want to show about like notes and stuff like that, but a little bit about, these are just a little bit, as you can see, this is normally what I do my first day. So I showed you the rules of divisibility. We did some of that. And then these are other things that I do, like how many factors in a number. I did the 36 problem with you guys, but I have some other number problems that I usually do. And then, yeah, anyway, so while you guys are still here, let me just remind you of some basics. If you want, the first thing is if you want those sheets, which I'm assuming you do, because they have a lot of information, everyone always does want them. The thing where I, you know, tell you like the different, you know, pros and cons, and little secret advice like Magoosh, always ask for 25% off. They'll give it to you. But I'm happy to send this to you. This is just my opinion. These are just my opinions, though. Okay, please don't, take it any other way. And then, so yeah, this kind of goes through like what you need for GMAT and GRE. What else do I have? Like the scores you need and some different things that tell you a little bit about percentiles. People usually don't understand that too much. For example, what I'm trying to say about that is like, if you get a 70 percentile in math, that is amazing. And if you get a 70 percentile in verbal, you need work. That's what I always say to people. Like 70 percentile in verbal is not good. But see, people are always like, oh, I'm so good in verbal, I have to work on it. Well, you should work on your strengths and you should work on your weaknesses. So that's important. But you also should kind of know because it's really important that you juice the right stuff, because sometimes people just keep trying to get that math one up and it's like diminishing returns. It's not going to really work. Then I give you a side-by-side. This is another thing, side-by-side. I talk about how much time you need, some things, and then this is what I was talking about, like why it takes a while to get through things. And I talked a little bit about when to take the test, what it looks like, all that. And okay, so questions. Okay, so then there's other certain things. If I know something, people are asking, I'm just reading questions. And I'm willing to take them. And I don't know if anyone has any final questions. I'm going to be here for, I don't know, until you guys all leave. But as far as someone said, how long does it take GMAT GRE to be processed and sent to the school? I know that most schools will insist that you take the test before, like you could, if your due date is January 1st, you could take it on December 31st, because you get the score when you walk out of the center, and then you put it on your application, and the official one gets sent to them, I think about 2 weeks later, with the grades on your essays and stuff. And the school just takes, they assume that you're going to tell the right score because it's going to be backed up within 2 weeks, but they really do want you to take them before the deadline. So, usually you can do that. And then someone, someone said, do I skip things if you know it? Yeah, everything, individual tutoring is pretty much me trying to be as efficient as possible to just go with like, I can figure it out just by like the conversations where your strengths and weaknesses are. I sometimes hear it in the way people talk about numbers, the way people do multiplication. It gives me ideas about like what I need to tweak. So every single person is different. I have a lot of students who, I'm working with a super strong student right now. She just really like wails through all of my things and then just comes to me with things that she's like, okay, I need to do this faster, or why am I, this is how I'm setting it up, and then we correct. Because sometimes she understands things great. I want her to be I always fantasize about always trying to get my new personal record, right? Like, what's my new top score? She's like, gunning for it. So yeah, we're always working on anything we can do to second shave, to take things off, to make sure that she has more time, because everybody who takes this test is feeling a time. Especially I'm going to say in the math, but there's always seems to be, there's a time crunch. You're always sliding to home because this test is adjusting to your level. So I have had students get perfect 51s on the test, but when I watch their practice tests, they're usually getting about 4 wrong and not getting the last one right. That's how it looks. And then some other questions, like how do I determine the number of hours? All this, look, really, I would say if you guys are interested in this, private conversations, find me on Leland, send me a message on Leland. We set up a chat, and really everyone is individualized. I almost would just pull up my background records, but I'm worried that there might be too much personal information in there. But I usually start off by just talking to you about where you want to go to school, what your schedule looks like, what your math background's like. I start with some basics. I send you homework before the first lesson so that you just start off with some stuff, so that this lesson that I just talked to you about would be maybe like a little easier to process and get to understand. But I do, I apologize if this went really fast and you're overwhelmed, but I'd rather you guys see like what it really looks like and how hard it can really get, because it gets really hard. And obviously a lot of people here, Leland's got a pretty strong Stanford connection. A lot of people are shooting for GSB and all the other grades, of course, but there's some high caliber students here. and I'm assuming that you guys want high caliber scores. So I want you guys to be just aware of what you're up against. I think that's probably my biggest thing that I'm always trying to do. I think that if anything, let me just make sure that I am scaring you into realizing that you must start right now, because it's stressful. Even though that girl that I told you about who got into Columbia deferred, I mean, sometimes I'm like, this is why I make the money, because I get like so sick when someone's like, okay, like, do you think I can pull this off in 11 days? And I don't comment anymore, because she did pull it off. So who am I to say? But I just tell them what I think it will take, and and lay it all out like that. And usually, I can't say usually. I don't know. It's so hard to predict, and you never really. Sometimes the planets just need to be aligned when you take that test too. So. But I really like to. I mean, in my world, I like that. That file that I showed you with that girl who has done about 20 tests and as getting close. That's what I want. I want someone to take at least 4 practice tests where they're getting their target score, or around there, before I send them into the real thing, because no one's going to just jump up 50 points on a test. Well, I can't say that either, because I've had that happen. But I just, my idea is that everyone is, knows what they're going to get into when they get there, that they've seen it enough on practice tests, that you've taken a million, but there's nothing that you're going to see that you don't know, you've never seen before. So, but okay, so that question about like how, I don't know if there's any other questions, but basically like trying to figure out how much you need and all that. That's really just probably, I would say, let's have a private conversation. Let's meet for 15 minutes and do one of the meet and greet Zoom sessions where I meet you and then I talk about it. And then I have different, that's why I have the package. If you still, I offered the 25% off 6 hours if you want to try this out. And I believe that code was put in by Erica, but I'm gonna put that in again. So Marie, but quite honestly, if you guys, you might want to meet with me first before we do this, but it is 25 off 6. Okay, all this stuff is lowercase. So if you're interested, this is 25% off 6 hours. That would be like 3 lessons. All my lessons are 2-hour sessions, but I'd probably say let's, start with a conversation so that we can, make sure that this fits your schedule, and that, well, I want, everyone's different. So I have to like write down the notes for you, because usually, even though my first lesson's the same, I might change the pace of it, or some people, know that immediately they want to start by, a lot of people want, like if you're already prepped up and you're just trying to, and you're in the, I don't know, mid to high 600s, you're trying to get to that past that 700 threshold. Sometimes I'm thinking differently. Like maybe I'm just going straight for probability first, because that's always a big one. A little bit more of this stuff is always a big one. And then, whatever it takes. Some people are really rotten at geometry or overlapping sets or work and rate times time problems, those things. And then sometimes, always throw in things that people don't know that they're going to be bad at, like ratios. No one really is as scared as that as they should be. So there's other things that, I don't know. I mean, I think one thing that I pride myself in is that, like, I know almost every single curriculum. I worked for Kaplan many years ago. I know the TT Target Test Prep, Magoosh. I have subscriptions to Target Test Prep and Magoosh. And what else do we do? I've used Veritas and Manhattan Prep, which is not one of, I don't like it that much. I have GRE. I don't really use GMAT Ninja. But anyway, the thing is, I like to basically take problems from each of the, each curriculum makes its own problems, and then they never do anything again. They don't update them. So like Magoosh made their question bank at least 7 years ago, because it's the same one I've been using for 7 years, and they never update. And that's the only thing that I don't understand why companies don't do that, because the problems get a little stale, and the tests sort of they morph, and it's that's sort of what I do. Like I keep up to date with what's changing and what's appearing more on each test, so that I can direct you to maybe these like little, there's something that I call 2-digit reversers. I've only seen those problems maybe like 5 different problems in my entire life, but I have all of them so that we can go through them really fast. And that's what I think that that's why I think I'm like really the best, really, because I'm such a dork about this task. I love it. I love teaching this. It's just my favorite thing in the world. And I mean, I love, getting people into dream schools and having those, phone calls where everyone's like so happy. But I love my, and I like verbal too. I really do like verbal, but I guess math is I'm gonna admit that I think it's a little bit more fun. It's a little bit more like, aha, I get it. Where verbal's like, yes, that grammar does make sense, but people are a little bit more frustrated with grammar.
Hi, Maria.
Anyway.
I have a quick question. So
Sure.
the kind of the next step is just send you a message via Leland after we sign up for an account and request kind of just a free intro call that's just like a 15-minute like deep dive. And for that call, would it just be, like I was just wondering, should I do it right now or should I do that on the call, telling you about like questions, goals, blah, blah, blah. It's not going to be obviously an actual coding session, but is that the next step immediately after?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes they last a little long, so don't worry about that too, because they're
Okay.
going to run a little bit longer. But people sometimes will send me messages specifically being like, I have a 50-hour package that's sort of like the complete, and a lot of people do that. But then some people are like, there's no way that I'd ever get through that, so then I have to customize them. And I didn't design a billion different packages. I'd rather just have the conversation. So yeah, that's usually what happens. I know that I'm like, not available till Sunday, for example, for these sessions, but Sunday's my next open day.
In the message, should I include like details about myself, like my background, not necessarily like my, should I include
you can if you
background,
want, if you want, but it's going to come out in the,
Okay,
you can
okay.
if you want, or you skip it if you want. It doesn't really matter because we're going to have a face-to-face conversation.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else have any questions? Okay, well, it seems like at least half of you are gone. I think that this might be a good time to call it. But yeah, if you have any questions, please just contact me through Leland. And that's everything.